What's up, Dragon Brood? So we're coming up on the end of the core set 2021 previews. This has been a long journey, it feels like, but it's only really been like a week. It's just been a ton of cards, maybe like 10 days. But we put a bunch of stuff out. We got the end of the sets, mostly commons and uncommons, but there are a few interesting things. So we're going to go ahead and get caught up from yesterday and then today, and then I'll do a wrap up of just what I think about the set. So anyway, let's hop into it here, with the first one being 9 lives, which I have to assume most of the time you see this card, your opponent's not going to be doing anything good. Your friends are going to be trying to find a way to take this, donate it. You know, it's 1, 2 white, enchantment, hexproof. If a source would deal damage to you, prevent that damage, put a counter on 9 lives. When it has 9 or more counters, exile it. When it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So your opponent's likely going to be just trying to find a way to get rid of it to you before it goes off. Maybe even find a way to counter the triggered ability. That's another thing that could happen. Something like maybe Tail's End, or I don't know, to stifle, something like that. Maybe we'd be looking at doing that. So I don't know. Maybe that's one way to do it if you don't want to outright donate it and give it to somebody. But it's an interesting card at the very least. Just know that when you see it, your opponent's probably up to something. Shekelgeist. 1 in a blue. Creature spirit, 2/2. Flying. Can only block creatures with flying. Tap 2 other untapped spirits you control. Tap target creature you don't control. I don't know, it's okay. I mean, I know some people still like playing their spirit stack, so it's cool to have another option. It is a way to let you tap down your opponent's creatures, which could matter. Don't know if it's going to have room in standard because there's not that many spirits that are really efficient, but who knows. All right, I'm going to highlight Sanctum of All, but we did get 5 more, plus this one, so 6 different shrines, as they are. In this set, they're referred to a little bit differently, but that's okay. But the biggest thing is we got the Hondens that got released in Arena in Historic, so now you have more shrines to go with them because they don't look for Hondens, they want the number of shrines in play. So this here is 5, all different. It's 1 of all different colors, so Wooburg, if you want to call it that. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may search your library or graveyard for a shrine card and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If an ability of another shrine you control targets or triggers while you control 6 or more shrines, that ability triggers an additional time. So if you have 6 shrines, then whenever a shrine happens, it happens twice. Now the interesting thing is when you look at all the other shrines, I still think the more expensive ones probably could end up getting squeezed out. I know we played one in Historic, I guess about 3 weeks ago now, and one of the biggest things I had were the green and the blue ones were just kind of pricey. Or the blue and the black ones. Either way. Anyway, they just weren't as effective because they weren't really ending the game. But I feel like if you reach a point where you can play multiple red ones and white ones or whatever, you can get into a situation where you could be doing significant amounts of damage, gaining a good amount of life, maybe making some tokens with the old green one, you know, something like that. I think it'd still be pretty good. So this at least opens a strategy for how you want to build those decks with the shrines or the Hondens, or even seeing like what level it can get to on how specific you want to shrink them down to which ones you want. So I'm sure somebody will play it. Somebody's going to do it in Historic. If they don't, maybe toward the end of the season, I'll toss one of these together and play it here on the channel. Well, last week when I was on Good Morning Magic with Gavin, we showed this artwork and people were curious. Well, we finally got to see the card. So it's colorless and 2 blue. He's a legendary creature, human wizard, no surprise. He's a 2/2. When Baron Talarian Archmage enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent was put into your hand from the battlefield this turn, draw a card. So it's pretty neat that it can just bounce a thing. He doesn't necessarily have flash or whatnot, so you kind of have to just strategically do it on your turn. But if anything is bounced back to your hand, you get to draw a card. So that's a little interesting and pretty peculiar. And it also plays and is a little bit of a throwback to the old Baron, which is also interesting because I believe you could pay and then like sack a token to bounce a thing, something like that. So very cool that it's a throwback card, but still made new and does something different. Ghost Pilferer, 1 colorless and a blue. For a Spirit Rogue, whenever a Ghost Pilferer becomes untapped, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, you get to draw a card. Discard a card. Ghost Pilferer can't be blocked this turn. So this is kind of an interesting deal, right? Like, you can attack each turn if you want to unblock. You could pay it when it untaps to draw a card, so you can guarantee it has unblockability, but you also get to draw extra cards. So every time something like, say, Uro is coming out of the graveyard, then you get the option of playing a thing. Or honestly, if they're just getting a cat back a bunch of times. Though, I guess if they have a Mayhem Devil, you just lose your Pilferer. But if they don't have the Mayhem Devil, then it's free cards for you. So that's kind of interesting. So I don't know. This is an interesting card where it fits. I don't know, though it is a second efficient spirit that's available in M21 as well. Unleashed Fury. 1 colorless, 1 red, instant, double the power of target creature until end of turn. Simple, 1 line of text. I kind of dig it. I just don't know if there's room for it in a lot of things I would play. If I end up playing a bunch of stuff with Trample, I would at least consider it, because then, you know, doubling the damage obviously is significant, because it's almost like just punching the opponent directly. So don't hate it, don't love it. Don't know if there's room for it in a lot of the aggro decks we like to play, but remains to be seen. 1 or 2 might slip in there since it's only 2 mana. Well, we got to see the end of the land cycles, and this forest is pretty sweet. And what's neat is if you look, let me see if I can point to it on screen. I don't know, maybe. But either way, there's if you look right above the tree, there's just like these little things that almost look like teeth, or maybe like ornate teeth from like a necklace. So it's kind of cool. That's just a cool little touch to have on something like that. Very neat in the set that you get to see Garrick come back as a normal planeswalker to just be part of all this with this land. This is kind of neat. Witch's Cauldron, 1 black, artifact, colorless, black, tap it, sacrifice a creature, you gain life, draw a card. Lots of people are already speculating if this is going to go into the Jund food decks, but I don't know if it is actually. I mean, it's in that situation where, sure, they could sack things to draw cards, but they're also not generating food if they do it, and that's kind of the big kicker, because being able to have food with like Trail of Crumbs, with the Witch's Familiar, with the Gilded Goose, like that's all very important. So will they play this? Very likely. How many? Maybe not more than 1 or 2, but it's another option, so we'll see. And those are kind of like the only big interesting things now here today and yesterday to really kind of bring us to the end of our, I don't know what we'll call it, our C21 journey, or maybe M21 journey, as it's going to be noted on the cards. But do note that there are a lot of quality commons and uncommons. Things like Scorching Dragonfire, Opt, Shock, those are still going to be available in Standard for quite a while. So get used to playing with those. They're going to be useful. Now, what do I think about the set overall? Honestly, I think it's pretty good. There's a lot of concern from people, though, that the control decks got a lot of tools and that aggro decks didn't get nearly as many. That being said, I feel like I found a few things that we can use for the aggro decks, so as usual, as expected, because it's on brand, that's likely where we're going to start with our deck building here later this week. But yeah, there are a lot of things that the control decks got. But remember this, that's only going to be valid for about 3.5 months. Then we're going to move into Zendikar, and all those other sets are going to rotate out. So you're going to be back down to 5 set Standard again, and that's going to change a lot of the tools that those decks have available. So even if the control decks get an advantage, it's going to be mostly for the short term over the next 2.5 months, and then things kind of reset back to balance anyway. But rest assured, yours truly will be still here trying to build more aggro decks of some type or another, because that's what we do. There's cards that people ask me already about Gruul, like, do we want to put in Rada? Like, maybe. I think she has a spot. We just have to figure out where. And in the future, once you lose, say, Gruul Spellbreaker, then maybe we do look at Rada even harder than normal. So that's a thing. There's Heroic Intervention that we're really excited about. There's some really big blue cards that are going to be kind of crazy that could really shift the game. So it's just, honestly, we're reaching the point that there's going to be so many quality cards available in Standard. It's almost just a matter of what aspect somebody prefers more and what cards they choose to put in. But every deck's going to be pretty heavily powered for the next quarter of a year, next 3 months or so, because there's just going to be so much. I mean, when you get, that's the point, when you get to these 8-set standards, it's going to be really, really powerful. So just be prepared for that. There's going to be a lot of things that every deck can do. But I think overall, this is the most powerful set we've probably seen as far as core sets in a long time. Previous to that, I would say maybe M11 was probably the next one that pushed this level, or was this memorable. So I'm very excited to just see what all of these new cards do. And, you know, reintroducing prowess and kind of the different ways that planeswalkers work. There's some very cool card design, even on some of the regular rares and uncommons. So yeah, overall, I think this was great. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. But anyway, we do have that video coming where we're going to do a giveaway, so keep your eye out on that. I got all the stuff together, just took the pictures, so that video should be up in the next 48 hours. Be sure to look for that. And remember, if you haven't liked this video, please remember to subscribe to the channel. If nothing else, subscribe to reward me for doing this every day while the set was releasing and producing 2 videos a day on most days, or more. I think one day or 2 days I had 3 videos. But anyway, that I would appreciate you subscribing to the channel nonetheless. And remember to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out when we do have stuff up like that giveaway video. But that's all we have for you today. We'll see you next time.